Mark, thanks a lot for your time today. You're a veteran of building benchmarks. You founded the FTSE Russell back in '95. So my question to you is short-term and long-term. Short-term, just how volatile do you think markets will get, given the balance of risks out there and this whole notion of polycrisis? And what does the next 5 to 10 years hold for index formation?
You're right. In the short term, we do face some uncertainties. We don't know whether or not in the Middle East we're going to see what is at the moment an Israeli issue, whether that will break out into a regional dispute, and that will have implications. But we also have, the issues of China sort of going through its own recession and how China responds. So there's an awful lot of issues out there that could, I think as one of your previous speakers spoke to, they talked about sort of almost this rolling sort of recession. But I think we're likely to see some volatility, but I think we're through the worst.
You're there in Hong Kong. You're clearly British, Mark. And where do you stand in terms of the IPO flows and the battle between the listing venues, London, Hong Kong, New York, in the aftermath of Brexit, given the developments with China's place in the world and the geopolitics concerning the US and China?
Yeah. I've always been sort of long-term bullish on China. But always had there's always been short-term concerns, and you're seeing that. But the China market, you've got to sort of look at it over the longer term. As I go back, when I first sort of introduced China into global benchmarks, you've seen the size of China in global benchmarks increase enormously. I mean, China is now the second biggest country represented in global benchmarks. And in emerging markets, it's half of emerging markets. So China has had success, and China will become an important investment venue going forward. So there's no doubt about that. In the short term, China does have some issues, and the market's been underperforming. And when the market underperforms, that affects IPOs. We're not seeing the sort of growth in the market we've seen in the past. But the potential is there. And if you look at the forward-looking consensus from analysts, I mean, they're predicting that growth will come back into China next year. I think a lot of that is dependent on the government in China and whether or not they're going to be more aggressive in terms of stimulus. If they are, then you could see IPOs, you could see growth come back into that China market. London, I think, is a different story. I think London has suffered following Brexit. I think really the sort of nature of the market now, the industries that are represented are a little bit traditional, and it really needs to attract more modern companies, more tech companies. And at the moment, those companies are going to the US because of the higher valuations they're getting. So I think the UK faces a different challenge. I think the China market, the Hong Kong market, will continue to grow, but they will have periods when just IPOs and growth will not be there. But in the long term, I've always remained bullish about China.